Hey guys, I'm going to be going over your Chapter 1, the New World PowerPoint with y'all so that y'all could get some information. By now you should have already read the American Yop, Chapter 1, and you should have already read your sources, but this one is going to help you understand some of the key figures and components. So let's begin. The Bering Land Bridge Theory. Now, the Bering Land Bridge Theory is going to occur about 16,000 years ago. Now, at the time, lower sea levels during the last ice age is going to allow people to walk on the land itself. So, if you look at the map here, you can see where it has Bering Strait right there. What's going to happen is all the water is going to be sucked into the Arctic Circle, and that's going to expose the land beneath. So, if you could imagine, you have a bowl of water and then you put a sponge in it, what's going to happen to the water? It's going to suck into the sponge. If you take the sponge out, there's no more water. So that's what's going to happen basically. Because of this, the nomadic people are going to be going from Siberia, Northeast Russia, and they're going to be walking on actual land, not ice, following the animals, etc., into what we call the New World or Alaska. Now, eventually, they're going to be going down the coast for access to water and sources of food. And then after the ice age ends and the water is going to melt, it's going to block their passage. Now, the reason we know this is we are going to find a lot of artifacts on the ocean floor, things that normally would not belong there. For example, we're going to see evidence of campfires. We're going to see broken pottery shards. Like, yes, you can have broken pottery shards above, land and it falls into the water, but actual fire pits and burned, you can't, unless we're in Bikini Bottom, and we're not. So just keep that in mind. Now, other theories, possible seafarers from China, Indonesia, or Africa, they did have similarities in their pottery and tools. So most historians will make the connection that they went from one part to the other and they brought their stuff with them as far away as 40,000 years ago. Of course, the Vikings, Norse explorers, Leif Erikson, Greenland, Vinland, and this happened about 1,000 AD or Common Era. Now, the reason we don't know about it is because the literal definition of history is written. Prehistory is before the written word. So all of this happened, yes, but the Vikings didn't write it down. They didn't tell everybody about it in Europe and Scandinavia. So when Christopher Columbus came in 1492, he never knew that they had arrived. So that is why he is credited as being the first European, even though he literally wasn't. North American native societies at this time, Arctic and subarctic regions. I'm not going to read through them all, but they're there. Climate and geographical differences. Different regions did have different climates and resources. The plains area was largely grassland, few trees, mostly following bison herds, Great Basin, arid, little rainfall. The Southwest was arid, agricultural focus on drought-tolerant plants. And of course, the eastern woodlands, hunting, gathering, and agriculture. The Clovis and the Plano cultures were very well known for their arrowheads, or their points, as we call them. In the bottom painting, you can see the natives hunting bison and buffalo. The Pueblo peoples, of course, in the Four Corners, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico, little bits of Mexico as well, are going to be building into the rock, into the cliffs. Mostly there wasn't enough lumber to build, obviously. Nomadic peoples. So when it says nomadic, it means they didn't build permanent structures like houses or whatever. They had teepees that they could easily take apart and travel with. Wigwams, you could see in the bottom painting again, more hunting, but notice that the native is on a horse. So this is after first contact. Northeastern cultures, you can see these are the ones in the Northeast. They lived in these type of dwellings. The Powhatans. Northwest cultures. Mississippian cultures and the mound builders. It just, it's allergies, I swear. You can see there that the snake goes and wraps around. Like, how did they do that? Like, you can see it from space, but how can you see it from the actual bottom? It's like ridiculous how they did that. You can see most of the mounds, the Caddoan, the Middle Mississippian, the South Appalachian, they all had mounds. And of course, And then maize. Before AD 1000, maize agriculture did begin to spread from Central America through America. Maize or corn was really popular in the Southwest. Societies developed vast irrigation systems. Pueblos, of course, along the Rio Grande. Maize cultivation is going to transform societies. But if you look at it, like corn really was their main crop. Less emphasis on hunting and gathering. If you are going to plant crops, you need to stick around long enough to harvest them. You can't just plant them and leave. You have to stay. So they are not going to have that hunting and gathering mentality. They're going to stay where the crops are. The Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca are going to be the three major Mesoamerican native societies. The Mayan are going to be in the present day Yucatan Peninsula. They're going to have slash and burn fields, Three Sisters crops. The Three Sister crops is going to be corn with squash and beans growing alongside it. 365-day calendar. They had complex numbering system, complex city states. They did collapse around 900, but the people did remain. The Aztecs was centered on present-day Mexico City. As you could see from the painting, it was built on a lake. Conquest of smaller societies that were then incorporated, and extensive farming and irrigation was present. As you can see, one ruler with priests, nobles, and military leaders. The Incas, the Western South America, all the way from Ecuador down to Chile. They had complex construction, terraced agriculture, as you can see, the terraced farming there in that top picture. They raised llama and alpaca for meat and for their fur. And metalworking did include gold, silver, and the alloys. So now we're going to go to the Age of Discovery. Again, Columbus wasn't the first. He was the first who documented it. Okay, so during the Renaissance, there was a desire for new trade routes. So if you look at the map, they were tired of going through mountains. They were tired of going through all of these other areas. So they're going to try to say, hey, why don't we just go around and just go on the other side coast? And that would have worked perfectly, but they didn't know that North America and South America were smack dab right in the middle. So when Columbus and his crew landed in Hispaniola, saw people of darker complexion, they assumed they landed in the West Indies, which is why they were called Indians. Not India, but the Indies. And then, when Columbus died, he never realized that he discovered the New World. Led by Spain and Portugal, Portugal is going to have a monopoly on the trade, as you can see from the map from 737. Spain is going to hone in on that. So there were new trade routes, colonies, and they wanted to Christianize the people. Now, if you think about it, the Crusades had been going on at this time, and it was the battle between the Christians and the Muslims. So this is why they wanted to, or why there was such a priority to Christianize, because of the natives. Now, colonization is going to lead to three major effects: destruction of the Indian culture. Can you see my hand? Permanent settlements for the Anglos, and wealth for the European nations. The Age of Discovery, the only reason that the Age of Discovery was so successful was because they had better ships called caravels, which were very quick, very fast. Quick and fast are the same, but they were also lightweight. They had better navigation tools. The astrolabe and the sextant were able to measure latitude, longitude, etc. The magnetic compass could find true north. And then they actually had maps by people from before them who documented it, unlike the Vikings. Am I right? I'm right. Key motivations: a search for new knowledge during the Renaissance, and there were the three G's: God, gold, and glory. Gold, of course, because, and I am about to teach you the most significant lesson right now. The most important thing in history is money. Money is the bottom line. Every single chapter I am going to mention, money is the bottom line. Glory, a desire by kings to develop large overseas empires. So yeah, you have a house, you're rich, but if you have a house and a vacation house in the Hamptons and one at Martha's Vineyard, and you have like a place at Cabo, you're wealthy. One isn't enough. So yes, you have your country, but if you own other countries, you're wealthy. And then of course, God, because the Crusades, and we've got to Christianize as many people as possible. Columbus arrived in 1492, discovered the New World, is credited with discovering the New World. Other explorers that followed him, John Cabot, Juan Ponce de Leon, Giovanni de Verrazano, and Panfilo de Narvaez. Jacques Cartier and Hernando de Soto are also going to be two major ones from France and Spain, respectively. Now, because Spain and Portugal were competing with each other for land in the New World, the Pope is going to get involved. And you're probably asking yourself, why is the Pope getting involved? The Pope is getting involved because in 1493, there were maybe three major religions. Judaism, okay, there's five. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Hindu. Now, when I say Christianity, that means all believers of Christ. Now, if you've never taken WHAP, then let me just give you a brief rundown. After the Reformation, which happens around 15, 14, 15, 16, whatever. I'm not a WHAP teacher. All of that time period, you're going to have Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. You're going to have Henry VIII in the 16th century, demand a divorce, get denied. He breaks away from the church, creates his own religion. Before all of that, there was only one Christian church, the Catholic Church, and the Pope had power over everybody. If your country was Christian, you answered to the Pope. So that is why the Pope had tons and tons of power. Now he is going to issue the papal line of demarcation, and this is going to essentially split the map. So Portugal, because they had so much influence in Asia and that area, they got the short end of the stick. So as you can see, they only got the eastern part of South America, which is present-day Brazil. And then I know you're probably thinking, the Brazilians speak Portuguese, not Spanish. This is why. And then, of course, everything else to the west went to Spain. So the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494 is going to have no clear-cut boundary on the other side of the world, only for Spain and Portugal. So England and France and the Dutch and everybody could come along and whatever. It only applied to those two. The Columbian Exchange is going to be the exchange of goods between North America and Europe. So Europe is going to bring coffee and peach and pears and citrus and olives, onion, oh my gosh, all of my favorites, grapes, livestock, including cattle, sheep, the pig, and horses, grains and whatnot. But they also bring smallpox, influenza, typhus, the measles, malaria, diphtheria, the whooping cough. But we are going to give Europe, and you're welcome, tobacco, pumpkin, turkey, squash, avocado. Oh my gosh, avocado. Peppers, the cacao bean, which is chocolate. Peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, yam, corn, beans, and vanilla. It's not on the map, but we also give them syphilis. Okay, there, I said it. Okay, now the encomienda system is going to be like slavery, but instead of the African slaves, it's going to be to the native population. So what's going to happen is the king is going to grant pieces of land to his lords. They're going to be in charge of all this land, and they are going to be given Native American slaves as slave labor. The receiver could extract a tribute. So if you live in this area of land, you're not a slave, you're not an indentured servant, you live there, you have to give a portion of everything to your lord, and in return, he will protect you. It was required to protect and instruct in the Christian faith because remember, God Gold Glory, it was one of the big ones. Now at the very top, you had the Peninsulares, the ones who were in charge of the encomienda system. These were the ones that were born in Spain and then came to the New World. Then you had the Creoles who were born in New Spain, but their parents came from Spain. So first generation New World. You had the mestizos, which were Spanish and Native American mixed. You had the Native American Indians, and then those that were enslaved that came from Africa or the Caribbean. Spanish colonies, motives for colonization. After Columbus, Spain dominated Central and South America. Spanish conquistadors are going to explore in search of gold and silver. And then the missionaries are going to, of course, convert to Native Americans to Catholicism. The Spanish government is going to encourage converting Indians and establishing missions, as you can see the red dots on the map, which is why a lot of the cities in California are like San Francisco, San Diego, and whatnot. And then we have like San Antonio, named after saints, is what I was getting at. Their government, they had royal control with viceroys or viceroys who were sent to act as governors. The economy, all they cared about was making money for the mother country. They used Native American labor and then later slave labor when the natives died to mine gold and silver. And then they built their encomiendas, the plantations I mentioned, to farm cash crops. Society is going to be strictly controlled. So the peninsulares are at the top, the Creoles, the mestizos, the Indians, and of course the enslaved at the very bottom. Lack of women led to intermarriage. So the Spanish didn't really bring women, and the men were looking around like, The only women available were Native Americans. So they were, it says intermarried, but you know that women had no choice to marry the Spanish. Indians and African enslaved Africans are going to make up the bottom. Now we get to the French. Here's a map. It's French. Motivations. After Champlain's attempt to find a Northwest Passage, he is going to land in Canada and he is going to found Quebec. The French Crescent is going to include Canada, the Mississippi River, and my second favorite city, New Orleans. Missionaries are going to, of course, convert Native Americans to Catholicism because crusades and hey, we all got to be Catholic. Like Spain, the French government is going to encourage converting Indians and establishing missions, but it's not really going to be a big deal. The government of the French colonies is going to be strictly controlled by the royal governors. The economy is not going to be gold and silver. It's going to be the fur trade. They are going to profit from the fur trade, small scale farming, lumbering, and whatnot. And of course, society friendly with Indians because the French needed furs. They were the most friendly with the local natives. They didn't want to steal their land. They wanted to use the land alongside them, which is why there's going to be a huge difference in dynamics. And then the English come. Here's a map. It's English. Okay, in 1600s, English settlers are going to arrive in North America. The earliest one, of course, was Roanoke. English colonization is going to be different from the Spanish and the French mostly because the English did not want to create an empire. They just wanted money or religion. This will be discussed further in chapter 2. Different motivations by English settlers is going to lead to different types of colonies. For example, it's on the next slide. I don't know how to edit this, so it's going to stay. Motivations, many different reasons: economic, escape poverty, or gain wealth from cash crops. Religious, they wanted religious freedom. Remember I mentioned the Protestant Reformation, Henry VIII. A lot of people aren't going to like the direction that the church is going in, and they're going to create their own religion and break away. And then, of course, the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution are going to be occurring. As a result, the British colonies are going to be very different from each other, and they were never very unified. And this is going to be seen even as late as the Civil War. The government. Now, here is a two-word term that is going to play a huge role in the later chapters: salutary neglect. Now, salutary neglect means the king is going to, establish the colony, and then they're going to leave, and they're not going to see what we're doing, and we're going to do whatever we want. And then they're going to come back and be like, who told you could do this? You were gone 300 years. What'd you think? And not 300, but you know what I mean. Royal governors are going to be sent by the king, but they're not really going to have power. The economy and society, again, it all depended on which area they lived in. The societies are going to be different in the New England colonies. They're going to be like Massachusetts, which is chapter 2, are going to be closely connected to religion, the family unit, and, money. The southern colonies are going to be all about money. They're not going to be about families. They're going to be cash crop, like tobacco, like cotton. It's going to be a huge gap between the wealthy and the labor class. And that's it. So I hope this helped. Bye.